Hello, everyone. This is Stacy Stube from BROMO and Elsa Fitzgerald Studio. And we are starting this segment called Entrepreneurial Innovation. And we are lucky enough to have Lauren Choi here with us. Lauren, thank you
Hi.
so much for joining us.
Oh,
Good to see you.
It's so good to see you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren. I studied materials engineering at Johns Hopkins University, and I'm the founder of The New Norm. And we recycle red Solo cups into wearable fabric.
So when did this journey start for you with this idea?
Yeah, so this, I would say kind of officially started last summer. I had the idea about a year before to kind of just enter the space of like recycling plastic into fabric. That was a big thing at the time. I think a lot of articles were coming out about how companies were doing this, particularly with plastic water bottles. And so I thought that was so cool. I was studying materials engineering. And I've always just been very interested in fashion. I was, sewing pieces as a young kid just for fun. And I thought, I was like, what a cool way to kind of combine those two interests. And so I did a lot of research at first and then kind of decided I would build my own machine to do this. And I spent last summer in my garage building, it's called an extruder. Essentially, it recycles plastic into a filament or a fiber that you can then weave or knit into fabric. So I spent last summer doing that. And then it kind of just turned into my whole senior final thesis, you could call it, final design project. And then kind of took off from there. I graduated in the spring and I've decided to pursue this full time. So yeah.
So if we just sort of rewind for people to understand, you're taking red Solo cups, for example, on college campuses. There's a lot of drinking that happens, and we have these cups that end up, having a single use. So you take those cups, and then walk us through like what happens from there.
Yeah. So the Solo cup thing, exactly what you said. I actually went back to campus and saw all of that, and I was like, oh my God, we're using so many Solo cups. Why don't I just try this in the machine? So before that, as I kind of said before, we were using plastic water bottles, kind of transitioned to Solo cups, and it worked on the first try. So what that means is we kind of shredded up the Solo cup into a smaller chip, put it into the machine, and then it's heated and turns into this kind of homogeneous melt and then is extruded out. So you can kind of think of it as a very advanced like Play-Doh machine where you kind of push the Play-Doh through. I feel like that visual really helps me. But yeah, so that's the process. And then it turns into a filament or a fiber. And with that, there are kind of endless possibilities. You can turn it into a yarn, texture it and whatever, and then weave it or knit it into fabric. So for the first year, we were really focused on that first step of making the machine work, setting up a collection program on campus. So we were collecting directly from student organizations, and we were honestly overwhelmed by the thousands of Solo cups we received. And it was around then that we decided, okay, I think it's a good time to pivot away from just focusing on the machine and then kind of move on to lab testing, which is where we are now.
And then you won an award, wasn't it towards the end of your program or something? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so actually I think one of the greatest things about doing this as a university student was realizing, how many opportunities there are out there to kind of develop your business model and get advice and help. There are a lot of competitions and grants for university students. And so I spent my last year, raising grant funding to fund this venture. And yeah, so I participated in the Johns Hopkins Technology Ventures Spring Accelerator. And at the end of that, that semester, so right when I was about to graduate, a lot of things kind of fell into place. So we won the Hopkins Business Plan competition. The Bishotti Award is kind of a huge award for a student. And there are 2 winners every year. So we were really lucky to receive that grant. We also received a lot of funding from JHU Tech Ventures. So yeah, a lot of things really fell into place so that we could, go full speed ahead with product development.
And where do you see, so currently at the stage that you are, you're now being able to spin it, it's turning into the yarns and then possibly into textile. You know, let's say 5 years from now, what is something that you'd really want to be striving towards? Because it seems like, congratulations, a lot of obstacles I'm sure have been overcome to get to this point.
Yeah, so we have our fabric now, which is really exciting. I actually here I can show a little sample. This is our woven fabric, and I think just being able to see it and feel it, and then also on the lab side test it. It's really kind of opening the doors to, yes, this can be used as a wearable. And so I think right now what we're doing is making sample garments out of our fabric as just proof of concept that this can be turned into apparel. And I think in the next 5 years, if we were collaborating with apparel companies that are hoping to move to more sustainable practices, and change the polluting parts of their supply chain, I think, you know, if we were launching sample collections or capsules with them, I mean, that would be that would be ideal for us. Yeah.
And how long does it take to, say, do a yard of this fabric, the woven?
So yeah, I mean, since we are in lab testing, we're using industrial equipment, so everything is going to be at the most efficient speed. It can be processed on industrial machinery, meaning it's being drawn out at very quick speeds. And so I think we've never timed the entire process, but that was the biggest goal in lab testing, is make a material that can be integrated into the existing manufacturing infrastructure. So yeah, it doesn't require any additional machinery or technology around it. Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to create this segment called, entrepreneurial innovation is I really, admire that spirit of someone who's sort of inventing something or inventing solution. What were some of the big challenges that you faced, whether that was like emotionally, like mentally, and how did you keep that, positive spirit to carry on and to get to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely challenges along the way. I feel like the day to day is not as glamorous as the quote, startup life may seem. Um, I think definitely one thing, and coming into COVID, I mean, everybody is in a way or another kind of isolated. I think one big thing that me and my fellow kind of student entrepreneurs have talked about is, making sure to look back and, be grateful for the experience and also recognize the accomplishments as well as the obstacles that you're facing. I think looking back and looking at the big picture has been very important. But yeah, I think COVID presented itself as a fairly large obstacle, but also in ways, it immediately moved my mindset of focusing on this machine, developing it, and realizing, okay, we can actually totally pivot and focus on the chemistry, the material science challenge, and then actually be able to move on to lab testing. So I think being ready to pivot, being ready to, change with the times, that's been very important, kind of an important mindset to have, especially this year. Yeah.
And in terms of the performance of the actual fabric, do you think that it works best for certain, let's say relating to fashion? Is it more of like an outdoor fabric, something you'd wear as a jacket, or do you think it's something that could be worn as like scrubs in a hospital?
Yeah, so what we're doing right now is actually kind of manipulating the yarn so that we can achieve kind of a wide variety of fabric types. So for example, you can texture the yarn or twist the yarn or ply it, and so that the fabric is thicker or it's more, stretchy and elastic once you've knit it. Or our woven fabric drapes really well, and is kind of like shiny and slippery. And so what we're doing right now, I'm not sure if I told you, we're preparing for the St. Andrews Fashion Show in Scotland. We were invited, which we're very, very grateful about. And their theme this year is sustainability. So at that show, we're going to present kind of a wide variety of different types of end uses, from outerwear to more formal dresses and gowns, to a bodysuit or a tight knitted dress. So yeah, I think the goal is to have a fairly wide repertoire of different types of materials in the end.
I thought what was also interesting with the solo cups turning the color to a natural slight pink. Do you see any sort of engagements with the breast cancer awareness and some of these
Oh
sort of
wow.
interesting collaborations where the natural color becomes that sort of pink?
That is a fabulous idea that I did not even think about. Yeah, I think that was also a pleasant surprise on our end too, to realize, oh my God, it's such a beautiful color naturally. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, definitely, I think the whole point of the new norm is to one day collaborate with as many people as possible. And I think, you know, it opens up a whole new door to a different side of sustainability and dyeing without having to do a whole nother dyeing step with chemicals and water, and that's insanely polluting. Um, so yeah, actually that's one thing we're kind of playing with in the new year is, can we achieve certain colors by adjusting the input material? So that's actually one of the first things, along with a couple other things that we're testing this January.
Okay, great. And are there, there's a lot of people that are watching this video probably from LinkedIn and YouTube. Are there certain types of people that you're interested in connecting with? And, how can they get a hold of you? And sort of what are your next steps in your outreach?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of next steps, we are moving forward with lab testing and kind of, as I said before, expanding our repertoire. I mean, we're always looking for advice and advisors. I think without our advisors and seeking industry advice, there is no way we would be where we are today. And so I think for those who have, you know, knowledge within the kind of manufacturing space in terms of creating fibers and filaments and fabrics at a small scale, I think that would be our, our next step, is to run a kind of pilot or a capsule with an apparel company that's interested. And so we are looking to kind of manufacture our fabric and our material. So yeah, definitely always looking for advice. Yeah.
Great. Is there anything else you want to say to our audience before we let you go?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining and sharing your amazing innovation, and we look forward to carrying on seeing, where it takes you next.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Bye.